Hello everyone, welcome to Eternal Brews. My name is Pojo, and today we're going to be talking about a redux of an old Crown of Possibilities deck, specifically the Worldpyre Pheonix Clockroach deck with Crown of Possibilities. Now, since we made the video with the Clockpocalypse decks, I've really become very fond of Worldpyre Pheonix in this particular setup. I really like the way that particular combo works, so we're going to talk about it again. And because a lot of the cards have changed, because Push Onwards is no longer a card in open beta, we had to make some different changes to make it more of a combo-focused deck. Fortunately, we have access to a lot of different cards that actually allow us to make this a very combo-focused deck, and we wanted to talk a little bit about how to change things up to make this deck interesting and viable again in the current meta. So here we have our four-color Clockroach deck. This is just a more of a fun brew than a ranked grind to master brew, but it is a really enjoyable time, and we're going to talk about why in just a second here. So the basic idea behind this deck is that we have this card Worldpyre Pheonix. Worldpyre Pheonix has, when you draw it from the void, it gets +3/+3 and its cost is increased by 3. So this is important because of that draw effect. When Worldpyre Pheonix dies, it's supposed to come back into your hand. But we're going to be trying to do something very specific with Worldpyre Pheonix, which is to make it so that it never even actually comes back into your hand, or rather that it only enters your hand for a very short period of time. So the idea behind this is that we have Crown of Possibilities here, which gives units you draw a random skill. And the objective of this deck is to stack as many random skills on Worldpyre Pheonix as possible until we hit the one that we are specifically looking for, which is Destiny. When Worldpyre Pheonix gets Destiny, Destiny of course reads that when you draw this card, you instead play it for free, and then you draw a new card. So a Worldpyre Pheonix with Destiny, basically whenever it dies, it redraws into your hand. Crown of Possibilities will give it a skill, however many Crown of Possibilities that you have. It'll get +3/+3 from its own ability, and then Destiny will play it back out onto the board for free and draw you a new card. So what that essentially means is that Worldpyre Pheonix becomes completely unkillable for your opponent, and in fact it becomes actively bad for your opponent to kill it, because not only will it get bigger, but you'll draw a card as a result. Having a big flying unit like this that your opponent simply can't deal with can be death for certain decks. It's particularly good against Armory, which I really enjoy, and it's just a lot of fun to play with. I really like having a sort of big, unkillable, crazy skilled Phoenix, and that's sort of the objective of this deck. So we're going to be playing a couple of rounds with this deck and showing off the ideas behind it, but let's go ahead and go over the other cards. First off, we do have Crown of Possibilities. The primary ways that we give units skills with Crown of Possibilities, aside from just drawing them out of our deck, are Second Sight, which draws cards and then puts a card on top of your deck, allowing you to redraw it. Twinning Ritual, which copies a card in your hand and draws that card. Again, very important, that extra draw. So the twinned copy does in fact get a new skill. And finally, Nesting Avisaur, which makes a card cheaper and also puts it on top of your deck so you can redraw it. Nesting Avisaur is more of a last resort. You don't usually want to use it to do much, but it is very good on Worldpyre Pheonix in particular. Most of the time, you will often just be playing this as a unit in and of itself. If Nesting Avisaur gets Echo from Crown of Possibilities, you can actually use Nesting Avisaur to continually put itself on top of the deck, redraw it, it'll get more skills, and then you can put it back on top of the deck again until eventually it just has all 15 skills. So Nesting Avisaur is a combo unto itself with Crown of Possibilities, which can be really fun. Finally, we have Clockroaches. Clockroaches are always a standard, reliable way of getting that value out of Crown of Possibilities, so they're a really good card with Crown in particular. To fill out the deck, we dig very deep for our combos. We use Scheme, Wisdom of the Elders, Devour, Quarry, and a little bit of Find the Way just to pull power out of our deck. All of this allows us to get deeper and deeper into the deck very quickly. It's very unlikely that we're not going to hit a Worldpyre Pheonix in this deck, and if we don't hit a Worldpyre Pheonix, we have the Clockroaches as a backup. So with Quarry, that ability to draw a unit and make it cheaper, and Scheme, that ability to just dig as far as 4 cards deep, you can actually get a more powerful or a more reliable combo than you could with the old Push Onwards. You can actually dig a lot deeper. The main issue, of course, is that you have to fix for all 4 colors of power, and to that end we run 4 Seek Power and 3 Find the Way. The Devour here is a one-of, but it's primarily an answer to silences. If your opponent is trying to silence Worldpyre Pheonix, it's much better to Devour the Phoenix, redraw it, get the new skill, and cancel the silence than it is to just let it get silenced, because silence is the one thing that you don't want to see on a Worldpyre Pheonix. Overall, the deck really speaks for itself once you get a Worldpyre Pheonix rolling. I think we'll show off a couple of games with it, and then we'll talk about it just a little bit more. So, see you guys there. Alright, here we go. We're up against 420 Stone Zone. Always a nice start. As an opening hand, this one's actually not too bad. So we don't really have anything to play, but we have a lot of ways to dig deeper into the deck. Generally, you want to have a bit more of a plan in an early hand like this, but there are two things about this that I really like. One is that I have all 4 colors. I have red, yellow, blue, and purple, so I am able to get access to everything, and I'm actually even going to be able to play this Wisdom with the Elders. 2 is that I have the equivalent of 4 or 5 extra draws, because Quarry will give me 2 extra cards deep, and Wisdom will also get me 2 cards deep. So as long as I don't get really behind in the first 3 turns, we're going to have a really good chance to dig for those Crown of Possibilities, which are the really key card in the deck. If we can get Crown of Possibilities down early, then the rest of these cards look really good. We're also not first, so we get an extra draw as well from that, and that's another reason to keep a hand like this over other things. For the most part, we want to generally aggressively mull for crowns. If you can get crowns, they're the best card that you can get in this particular setup. Now, I do need double red for Worldpyre Pheonix. I don't recall if I need double shadow for anything, but I'm pretty sure that I do not. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. Typically, unless you're running a Death Strike or something like that, the double shadow is not as important, and this deck deliberately keeps it light on influence symbols that are not in the Worldpyre Pheonix zone. So we need double time, we need double primal, we need double fire. As a result, we don't run cards like Death Strike that need double shadow because it's just a little bit too much all at once. Alright, so next up, we'll go ahead and play out here. My opponent is playing something slow and controlling. So we've got red, green, blue, and purple. Looks like it might be a Nyctotraxian deck. That's typically the most common thing that you can see with that just plays 4 colors this early. I'm going to Quarry. I got a Scheme, so we'll just make the Scheme cheaper, and that should help us dig a little bit deeper as well. I don't need to get more cards at the moment. The main thing that I need is the ability to get a hold of that crown, and if I can't get a hold of that, then the game's going to be a little bit harder to develop out properly. You can still sort of play a mid-range archetype, but really what we're looking for is that combo, so that's what we're after. Alright, Stone Zone plays a Justice Sigil. Not too much going on there, so we'll go ahead and Scheme. There's the crown that I'm looking for, also a Quarry and a Wisdom. I'm definitely going to be very happy with this crown, though. So let's go ahead and play it out. And now I'm looking for Worldpyre Pheonix or Clockroach. If I can find either of those, that'll be really happy. Regardless, I want this crown down as soon as possible. Since a patch ago, I would say, the meta has slowed down quite a bit. When the meta slows down, decks like these are a lot more fun. Crown of Possibilities is a card that gives you a really ridiculous amount of late game presence, because the abilities of Worldpyre Pheonix in particular, and of cards like Clockroach, are really powerful. Alright, we'll play the crown here, and then I'll just go ahead and play a red. And I will be able to second sight these Clockroaches, which is really useful. Go ahead and look at what Stone Zone's doing. This is clearly a Nyctotraxian deck of some kind. It's possible I missed him actually finding Nyctotraxian, but I think he's got enough cards that I would not suspect that. Sometimes I do not notice that when I'm looking at like the camera or looking at other things. We'll go ahead and second sight here. Alright, we got a hold of a Scaly Gruan with Killer, nonetheless. That's pretty cool. So from here, I'm just going to play a Primal Sigil. I can Wisdom or I can Second Sight. Neither one is particularly important to me at this moment, so I'm going to end my turn, because that way if I get Rain of Frogs, I can basically just Second Sight and play out the card and put the card that I want on the bottom of my deck. So for example, if It won't work with Clockroaches, unfortunately, but I can, for example, like hide this Wisdom or do some other things. It doesn't really work terribly well here, unfortunately. Okay, Celestial Omen's pretty scary. My guess is that he's going for an Azindil's Gift. That seems pretty likely at 7, but he might be picking up a Nyctotraxian. And if he picks up a Nyctotraxian, we should be able to just sort of get ahead of him in overall just power. Okay, there's Nyctotraxian. Nyctotraxian gets a random card. That's a fun deck. I'll go ahead and second say here. You can run Nyctotraxian in this deck as well. It is a 4-color deck, so it's pretty happy with getting a little extra. Okay, I'll go ahead and put the Clockroach on top. And now I have Overwhelm, Quick Draw, all of the fun stuff. Let's go ahead and Twinning Ritual a Clockroach. Give it 2 more. I got Destiny, that's really important. So I get 2 3/3 Clockroaches. That's not bad at all. And we'll end our turn. Now my opponent has a couple of things to deal with. It's going to be a trickier decision for him. I think if he Azindil's Gifts me, I'm in a bit of trouble, but I can still potentially pull some interesting tricks out of this. Okay, Depleted Fire Sigil means no Azindil's Gift this turn. That means that I get to play fairly aggressively for the next couple turns. Another card that you consider in this deck is Dark Return. It's very good with Clockroaches in particular because it's just really lovely for that particular setup. We don't use it in this deck usually because the focus here is on those Worldpyre Pheonixes, and Worldpyre Pheonixes don't really respond to Dark Return unless they've been silenced, so it's not a lot of fun to do it that way. We've got Stronghold Visage. That's a good way to gain a bunch of health from my opponent. I don't think we're particularly worried about that. I'm going to Wisdom here just to see what I can draw. We got Find the Way. I'm not opposed to that, but it seems a little bit just not amazing here. And unfortunately I drew 2 Echo units, so I actually had to throw one away. Let's go ahead and play out another Clockroach here. That should prompt a harsh rule of some kind. I'm going to ditch the Suffocate. Find the Way will pull power out of my deck, and pulling power out of your deck with Find the Way is actually pretty good for ensuring that you get better draws in general. So we'll definitely be doing that as soon as we get the opportunity. I'm guessing there will be some harsh rules coming out soon. We'll see what Stone Zone is after. Oh, he's playing Nyctotraxian. Okay, that's a little bit different. So I have a killer Quick Draw, which means that I can just, ooh, that's beautiful. How do we want to do this? So Nesting Avisaur will put this killer Quick Draw on top of my deck and provide me with a blocker for Nyctotraxian. I'm pretty excited by that idea, so that might be what I go for. There are some other options here too, but I think that one's the most interesting. So let's go ahead and go with that. Killer Clockroaches are pretty cool, and I would like some big killer Clockroaches. We're going to go ahead and swing. Are we going to swing at all? I don't think so. I think we will play another Clockroach, and yeah, we'll attack with these 2, get our 3 damage in. Maybe even 7. He might be afraid to lose Nyctotraxian. Okay, no such luck. That's fine. Stronghold Visage happens here. And now I can block with Nesting Avisaur, or I can wait and use it with Killer to get my Clockroaches into the position that I want them to be in. Those Clockroaches on top do have Quick Draw, so if I deal 3 damage to the Nyctotraxian with a Killer Nesting Avisaur, then the 6/6 Clockroach should be able to just kill Nyctotraxian and stay on the board, which should be pretty good for me. Okay, Stone Zone going for a Rise to the Challenge. That can pick him up another Nyctotraxian, which could be pretty scary. It could also pick him up like a Silence or something interesting like that. I'm not sure what this deck's going to go for, but I'm guessing it'll be another Nyctotraxian. It looks like it's sort of a slow Nycto deck. Yep, there we go. Another Nyctotraxian drawn. Those guys are big, they're pretty capable of winning things, but overall, in terms of card advantage, they don't outrank a Clockroach deck. Okay, we don't care about that too much. And if he wants to attack me with Nyctotraxian here, that's totally fine. Okay, he didn't, and that's even better. Okay, so Deadly, Killer, and Quick Draw. Deadly plus Quick Draw means I can just do this. And that's a pretty good deal overall. Let's swing for 6 here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and buff up the rest of these guys. Find the way we'll pick out some more power so that we have a little bit less power in our deck. And we're keeping it pretty light. We don't want to get harsh ruled with a lot of our stuff down on the board. Also, I'm really looking forward to like getting some more second sights and sandforms here. If I can get those, then Clockroach will be really, really solid. 420 Stone Zone. I think he's going to have some problems here. He didn't actually have Harsh Rule in the last couple of plays, so he can play more Nyctotraxians, but that's not going to help him very much. I've currently got 13, 16, 19 damage on the field. So with this Clockroach, I should be able to secure it. Kill that. And then this should be lethal. There we go. Yeah, pretty good one. Let's go ahead and do another one. All right, game 2. We are looking at a Crown and a Clockroach together. That's always pretty strong, so nothing wrong with going ahead and keeping this. I would like to see some actual Worldpyre Pheonix action sometime this game, but we kept the Clockroaches specifically so that we have this level of reliability in our early hands. We really, really want basically Crown and then a unit to do fun things with Crown with. My opponent got some sort of Echo in his deck. Echo usually means a slower control deck. Again, those are the decks in which we actually really tend to shine, so we're pretty happy with that result. Find the Way is better than Second Sight here, because we will want to use Second Sight to stack abilities on the Clockroaches with Crown of Possibilities, and this also allows us to play those Clockroaches probably in a turn or two. Diplomatic Seal. Looks like we have some time going on. That's good to know. Alright, Shadow Sigil here. We want to play the undepleted Sigil so that we can play Crown. And getting Crown down early is probably the most important thing that we can be doing. It would be nice to draw an undepleted Sigil here, because Twinning Ritual Second Sight is a really good way to get started on these Clockroaches. But I will take other things. Let's see how it goes. Alright, my opponent is running a Clockroach deck of his own. That's good to know. So we will go ahead and twin this guy here. Got ourselves some Warcry. It's pretty decent. From here we have to... I really want to play out as much stuff as we can. Alright, so nesting Avisaur means that he's got a pretty simple game plan. He's going to go for basically just a horde of Clockroaches as fast as possible. If I find the way here, I will get a power red, and that'll allow me to play Seat undepleted. So now I can play a Clockroach, which is a pretty important part of my strategy. Let's go ahead and Clockroach here. Now I have a blocker for his Clockroach, and I'll be setting up my own, which is pretty key. Winning Ritual gets him more cheap Clockroaches. He's going to try and run me out pretty hard, I would say. A 3/3 and a 5/5. We really want to get some actual skills on these Clockroaches to make them better. So let's Second Sight. Oh, got a Worldpyre Pheonix. That one has Aegis, which is pretty solid. I think I'm going to put that on top instead of these Clockroaches. That way I can play a bigger Clockroach if I feel like it, or I can play a little Clockroach. Either one is pretty good. Let's go ahead and go with the bigger Clockroach. I'll play a depleted Fire Sigil so that we are more capable of playing Worldpyre Pheonix next turn. That'll give me good blockers. I can block the 5/5 and the 3/3, just try and prevent as much damage as possible. And yeah, he's going for lots and lots of Clockroaches. Go ahead and block here. My main worry is Permafrost. I don't want Permafrost to happen to me. So we do have an Aegis on this Pheonix, which is really, really good. Let's go ahead and play the Pheonix. We're going to rely on that Aegis to protect it. It's got lifesteal already, so we're pretty happy if it dies. Like, this should work out just fine for us. If he does have a way to basically pop the Aegis and then disable the Pheonix, that's pretty bad for me, but otherwise I'm not feeling too threatened. I'm going to block here, and then I'm going to leave that one alone. Pheonix gets redrawn. It gets Destiny, so it comes back. And now I have an 8/8 lifesteal Destiny. That's pretty good. That's really what we're looking for in the Pheonix strategy. Destiny and Aegis together are the two really, really key bits, so let's go ahead and go with that. Alright, Quarry here. Found Suffocate, that's not bad. I like Storm Lynx as well. I think Storm Lynx might be a little bit better here. Oh, but Suffocate here allows me to get the 3/3, so that's a little bit more important. Swing for 8, get our lifesteal. Oh, a Scorpion Wasp. This is a mistake, though. It does protect his Staff of Stories, but Worldpyre Pheonix just comes back as an 11/11. And now it has Overwhelm, which is a little bit worse. Now we found an Annihilate. That's a pretty key card. I think instead of playing one of these Clockroaches, I'm going to hold on to this Annihilate. So if he manages to figure out a permafrost strategy, something to actually get rid of this Pheonix, we're going to annihilate it. And that will prevent it from being silenced or removed from the game. But it looks like he doesn't have the answer, so that is the game. And that is what the Worldpyre Pheonix deck is supposed to do, so we're pretty happy with that result. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and see if we can do like one more game along those lines. All right, we're looking at a Storm Lynx, Twinning Ritual, Clockroach, kind of a fun setup, but you can see this power base is not good enough, so we're gonna redraw here and see if we can fix. Much better, much better. We've got the Crown in hand. Always good to start with the Crown in hand, and we can pick up the Fire and Shadow that we need, so everything's looking pretty solid here. It's coming up roses. Let's pick the Shadow first, since we're gonna need it for Scheme. And then we can either play Storm Lynx next turn, or we can dig for more power. I think digging for more power seems like a decent use of our time. But, you know, it's not strictly necessary. Probably better to have the Storm Lynx to ambush another Storm Lynx. Okay. Let's go ahead and throw them out. Get some actual value going. Get things started. Play a blue here. Swing for 2. If I don't find double yellow, I might use Seek Power to pick up the yellow for the Clockroaches. It's going to be an interesting question. Seed of Wisdom. Okay, Rain of Frogs on Clockroaches is a little bit iffy. From here we probably want to Scheme. I can skip this frog and just go ahead and grab a second sight. And we will go ahead and draw some red. Now, we have a decent advantage here, which is that the Rain of Frogs actually doesn't put us out of this game. And indeed, it gives us an advantage with Second Sight, because Second Sight will draw us a card now. Putting the frog on top means that the Destiny will automatically trigger, and we will get a free card out of Second Sight. So Second Sight will essentially redraw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand on top of your deck, you draw that card and draw a new card. It's pretty solid. Should help out a lot in this situation. So we'll go ahead and get that started. Oh, I got a Twinning Ritual. That's pretty cute. Yeah, I'm going to do Second Sight again. Get that free frog. Oh, it's got Warcry. I like it. Put this frog on top. Draw that frog. It's got double damage. I like it. Swing for 2 here. That'll prevent some damage for the moment. Now we just need to find our Phoenixes. Okay, Storm Dancer's not quite what we're looking for. I found a Twinning Ritual, that's not too bad. Quarry, still didn't quite get what we're looking for. We'll just go ahead and... we can consider War Crying here. It's actually not a terrible idea to attack with both frogs, since I'll either get 2 damage or a free Warcry. Okay, he stops the Warcry, I get 2 damage. I feel pretty good about that. We'll Devour this for cards in just a second here. There's an Avisaur. Not putting anything on top, he's just going for flyers. Got another Frog with Destiny, really, really good. Let's go ahead and Suffocate here. That's fine. We're actually pretty happy to see that this early. And we will swing for 2. How much do I need a 2/2 Frog with Overwhelm? I think not as much as I need more cards. So we're going to try and draw some. Seek Power sets us up with time. That'll get us Clockroaches if we need them, but we don't have Clockroaches, so it doesn't matter. And we have Annihilate for this 4/4, so we're actually in a pretty good position overall. We've got that extra advantage of cards from the Rain of Frogs. Like, those second sights into Rain of Frogs like actually set us up very well. So as long as we just keep a little bit ahead of the times, we should be okay. I haven't seen a Sandstorm Titan yet. No attack means that I think I'm pretty good to go here. We're just going to Wisdom. We're not going to use the Annihilate because that could be better used on like a Sandstorm Titan. Something a little bit scarier, basically. Ah, and we found our Worldpyre Pheonixes, and they have Echo. That's really important. So we play here. I'm going to play out a Storm Lynx just so that I don't overdraw. And then we'll Twinning Ritual one of the Worldpyre Pheonixes. Alright, end my turn. The real risk here is a second Rain of Frogs. I have Winter, not so much. Okay, so let's go ahead and Twinning Ritual again. We got our Warcry Echo Phoenixes. That seems like a pretty good deal. I'm going to go ahead and play one down and attack for 2. Now, a deck like this is going to be stunning a lot of these Phoenixes, so we have to be careful about that. But as long as we can play enough of them down, we should be okay. Taking 4 there. What's the card that he can play if he manages to stun both of my guys? There's some pretty scary stuff here. Go ahead and put... Oh, goodness. We've got Twinning Ritual here, which makes this a little bit tough. I think I might do that. If we play the Worldpyre Pheonix now, then he can double stun to basically just get himself whatever card he wants. Probably Wisdom of the Elders or another Rain of Frogs. Yeah, Rain of Frogs is really scary here. I think the best I can do here is put one on top, play another one. Oh, Rain of Frogs will turn the one on top into a frog, but I'll get a card out of that. And then we attack for 2 here, push some damage. So he Eye of Winters here, stuns my 5/5, probably Rain of Frogs me, could go for the Wisdom of the Elders. He's got 6 damage on the books. But I will have a Warcry Pheonix, and I will also get the Destiny Echo if he Rain of Frogs my Phoenixes. Having some Phoenixes down on the board means that we have a decent advantage against this setup. So he gets 2 Echo things. Are you going to go for the Rain of Frogs is the question. So I'm pretty happy with having more frogs. Okay, the Phoenixes are no longer Phoenixes, but we do still have 2 Phoenixes, so that's pretty good. He's considering picking something else up. I'm not sure what. Alright, double damage Destiny Frog. Good time. So we will Annihilate this. Cunning Ritual this for a card. And I can scheme for more frogs if I feel like it. I think I actually am going to scheme, try and get something better. Quarry seems fine. Swing with these guys. And we should come out ahead in this. Let's go ahead and quarry. Oh, found a crown. I'm pretty happy with a crown. And we can play another frog if we want to, or we can just sort of stay put. Feel like we've currently got the board, so we don't need to play more frogs. It's on him to actually find something to kill me. This Drake's not gonna do it. 2-2. That was a good bit of back and forth there. I actually really appreciated that this game had a lot of like sort of counterplay going on. The Rain of Frogs didn't stop us, so we actually got a lot of good stuff happening. Go ahead and fight here, and that should be game. So yeah, we got one game with the Clockroaches, one game with the Phoenixes, and one game with a good bit of like sort of exchanges and interchanges. So I think that's a pretty good set of games to show off with this particular deck. We're going to go ahead and go into the postmortem now and just talk a little bit more about that deck. So obviously there's a lot of fun alterations that you can make to a deck like this. Another fun one to do is play with Nyctotraxion. If you want to get extremely silly with the deck and continue to play with a lot of like weird and silly things, that's a pretty good way to sort of get this deck going. It's already 4 colors, so you can just splash in that one Justice Sigil and just try and pick up Nyctotraxion and play it. Pretty delightful times. Nyctotraxion is a really good card if you're playing with these twinning rituals and second sights and other things going on. So yeah, it's something interesting to consider if you want to go ahead and try something a little bit different. Overall, this deck is, I would not say it's a competitive deck. I would say it's more for fun, but you can climb the ladder with it in slow metas. It does have, with all of the Crown of Possibilities decks, there is this level of extra card advantage and extra advantage where what you are generating becomes so overwhelmingly powerful or so like overwhelmingly numerous in the case of Clockroaches that you actually get advantage over even the deepest of control decks. Just if your opponent doesn't have a solid way to basically play a finisher and end the game, it's really hard to get out from underneath the weight of all of the Clockroaches that you are playing, or out from underneath the weight of these Worldpyre Pheonixes, which of course can't die, can't be removed by conventional means. Basically, these types of decks generate a kind of late game advantage that is just extremely good at pushing against slower control decks, and also basically making sure that if you do stabilize against an aggro deck or a tempo deck, that you are pretty much guaranteed to win the game from there. They just generate so much advantage in that particular aspect that's what makes them really fun. That's what makes them an interesting archetype. Eternal is just chock full of amazing different archetypes. I recently saw a graph of like, basically someone had posted like a thing of please post your favorite decks, or like figure out what your favorite types of decks are and just tell me what your favorite decks are. It just interviewed like a bunch of people and had them like all submit a form, and the pie chart ended up being something like 30 or 40 different decks, so much so that it didn't even resemble a pie chart. That's the kind of game that Eternal is. You can really do a lot of amazing things. There's a lot of really fun shenanigans that you can work with, and you can try and tune this deck to be a more competitive deck, and Clockroach decks can be fairly competitive, but also this is just a deck that you can run, that you can have reasonable success with in casual play. So I encourage you guys to have fun with it, experiment with it, play with whatever decks you really feel like playing with. This is just one fun suggestion as always, but of course we will be covering some competitive decks as well. We'll be doing a video on Carpet Shuffle pretty soon, and I'll also be continuing work on the Eternal Codex and the new redos of the card breakdowns for the Empty Throne. So look forward to those. Feel free to like or subscribe if you like what you see. I have been Pojo, and thank you so much. See you guys on the next Eternal Brews. Cheers!